Welcome to Uxbridge Beat, the podcast where we feature the who's who of Uxbridge, Ontario. My name is Scott Campsell.
And I am Jennifer Nevu-Campsell. And today we are sharing with you our tour of Footsteps Foley Studio with Foley artist Andy Malcolm.
Foley is the creation and recording of natural sounds which exist in television shows and movies. Andy Malcolm is a world-class Foley artist who is hidden away on his 25-acre, 3-studio and multi-storage house. Andy pioneered Foley work in Canada and now has 3 full-time running crews.
Andy's crews provide the sounds for shows ranging from the CBC to Netflix to Academy Award-winning movies.
Join us as we take a noisy journey through Andy's studios and he shows us what puts the beat into his sound-creating heart.
So ask me questions.
Let's start in this room. What have we got here?
So this was our first room. We have 3 studios now, and we still use this. It's attached to the house, and it's mostly single-walled, so it's not as soundproof as the other 2 rooms. The other 2 rooms are rooms within rooms, and the airspace between the 2 rooms creates a sound buffer, so they're super quiet. A good Foley track is one that you can't hear because everything fits and all the perspectives are right for that particular space. So the first thing we do on a Foley track is we go through the movie and we do all the footsteps for all the characters. So we have about 500 pairs of shoes around here.
So step 1 is all the steps.
Step 1 is steps, exactly.
Can you walk in heels?
Oh, very well, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
My wife says I walk way better in heels than she does. I've been doing it a lot longer. So I'll show you some shoes. So in this room too, of course nobody can see it, but there's all these different doors mounted. This door we had mounted, this bathroom door we had mounted for American Hustle because there's a scene in the bathroom. They're pounding on the bathroom door. I don't know if you ever saw that movie. We've got louver doors here. We've got just a variety.
Nice and creaky.
We love creaky doors. We love creaky floors. We love creaky hinges. Part of the game. Different types of latches. This door here was the door we used for the movie The Help. This was the maid's door here. So essentially we watch the film. That's how we do it. We watch the movie and we do the sounds in sync with what we see on the screen.
So when you get the movie, there's nothing.
There's a guide track. Yeah, they call it a production track, it's called as well. So we have references. But normally when you're on set or on location and you're recording for a movie, you're recording the voice, the dialogue. Dialogue is number 1. As much as we like to think Foley is number 1, dialogue is number 1. You have to hear what all the actors are saying. Everything else is added later, basically. So if you're miking up towards the face, then you're not going to hear the feet, and you're not going to hear some of the things that are being performed. So we do all that after the fact. Normally for a film, we get maybe 10 to 12 days to do a Foley track. But on a film like Alice in Wonderland, we had 50 days. And on a film like Dune, we had 50 days. Some films are more intense and a lot more going on than others. So here we've got all kinds of props. The 3 stages of doing a Foley track. Number 1, we do all the footsteps in the movie for every character, women, children, 400-pound guys, babies, it doesn't matter. And we've got all these different floor surfaces. So we've got, wood floors, tile floors, squeaky wood floors, dirt, gravel, you name it. We do ships. We've got, metal floors. So after all the feet are done, then we get into doing what we call props. And props are just whatever's happening on screen. We're kind of recreating the action. So,
And it's literally everything. So you've got everything labeled here. Cans and containers, takeout containers, fast food cups, cutlery tea sets, alcohol bottles. Everything you can possibly think of that you're ever going to see has a specific sound.
Exactly.
And so looking at, for example, your different wine bottles here, your little ones are going to make much different noises than your big ones, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this is like the tiny little tip of the iceberg. I'll take you and show you some of the props. In addition to what you see here, we have a basement full of props. We have 3 sheds, a barn, and a school portable, and they're full of props. So whatever we need. I mean, you know, everywhere you look, cigarettes, matches, lighters, ashtrays, doorknobs, switches, buttons.
Wild.
I'll take you over here. We've got different kinds of keys. Those are big jail keys. We've got hinges, different hinges that squeak. The difficult thing these days is we've got 3 studios going, so there's 3 Foley artists, and things aren't always put back where they should be put back. So sometimes you're searching the other rooms. Anyway, I'll show you a squeaky hinge in the other room.
That really squeaks well.
It really squeaks.
It won't perform on demand.
So funny, normally we try to do this recording stuff where there's like hardly any background noise. I try to edit all that stuff out.
Now
Meanwhile,
we
we're
want
like,
it.
yeah, we want everything. give us squeaky hinges. Give us shoes.
Seat belts, telescopes, belts, small seashells. Well, these are our dogs' feet.
What?
These are what we use for dogs' feet.
So it's a glove.
It's a glove with paper clips taped on the end.
Oh my.
So we can do little, little doggy sounds.
You could borrow our dog. He's got pretty tickety nails.
And the main thing that I need to get across about doing Foley is it's a layering of sounds. It's like music. In addition to doing the dog feet, you have to do the chain rattle. You have to do sort of fur movement and all that kind of stuff. And then there's a division of labor between Foley and sound effects editing. Sometimes we overlap. But the example of a dog is we would do all the feet and the dog chain and that kind of stuff. And the sound effects would handle the barking and the whining and whatever else dogs do.
Okay, so let's stop you for just a minute. Explain the difference between Foley and sound effects, please.
Okay, Foley is we perform everything live. We watch the picture and we perform it live in sync with what's happening on screen. Sound effects is where you use libraries. So you're using wind in trees or car passing at 40 kilometers an hour on wet pavement. There's things that you can do in the Foley studio that you can't do, in a live recording and vice versa. So it's always a working together. For example, horses. And again, to talk about layering, we do the horse's feet on one track, we do the bridle on another track, we do the leather squeaking on another track. If there's a buggy, we have ladders that we rattle, and we do sounds for the crunching gravel under the wheels and all that kind of stuff. And then the sound effects, they're doing, the ambiances, the cows mooing, the horses whinnying, all that kind of stuff.
So anything that could just be taken out as a background. So let's say it's a beach scene, you could have an ocean as sound effects, but something that happens on the beach, like where the actor's involved with, I don't know, tinkling wine glasses or something, that's you.
That's exactly right. Okay. And the feet in the sand and the running into the water. We have a water tank. We do the swimming, all that kind of stuff. And there's lots of tricks in Foley, which is part of the fun. I'll show you a couple on the way. But again, there's scissors, candy wrappers, locks and keys. There's a whole variety of different kinds of keys. There's jewelry. If somebody's wearing a necklace or a bracelet or whatever.
She's getting right in there with the camera on the jewelry.
Yeah, on the jewelry for sure. Yeah.
More jewelry, belly dancing.
Ooh, sexy. Can you wear those too? Are you good at that?
I'm pretty good at that, yeah.
Those in the high heels. I've got a totally different image of you now.
Money, anything related to money. We've actually got a cash register in the other room. If there's somebody, doing the change thing, we've got the chain thing. We've got wallets, bills. Whenever somebody's, flipping through a wad of money, We do all that kind of stuff. Bells, of course. Musical instruments, all rubber-related things.
Wow. Including the rubber chicken.
Including the rubber chicken, exactly. Just throw it in there. Actually, I'll just show you back here.
Sure.
Here. I was mentioning cash register. That's what made me think of this. Now, cash register is something that could be sound effects or a Foley, depending on whether the Foley artist has a cash register or not, and whether it works. We've got metronomes, gongs. We've got all kinds of stuff in here. School bells. Ooh, that's going to be loud. The voice changers. Testing 1, 2, 3. Voice changer. Testing, testing. And we've got musical instruments. We don't play the music track, but we handle the instruments. So if a band is setting up, we're, moving instruments around, putting guitars or violins down. Or we've got clappers. Good funny little things.
Sounds like my knees in the morning.
The fun thing for me is doing animated films. We do live action as one sort of area, and most of the stuff we do is live action, and you're trying to make it real, trying to make it fit, like I mentioned earlier. But animation, you get to go off the deep end, and for me, it's perfect Foley material because it's whatever makes you laugh or whatever works kind of thing. So now we're going into one of the room within a room rooms. So this is the Foley room that Sandra's working in right now. What show are you guys doing?
Cave Rescue.
Oh, Thai Cave Rescue. You can see here again the different surfaces, the dirt surfaces, the deck, the dock. We use heavy bags a lot for doing body falls and things like that. We mix that with some rolled up phone books that we dump for the limbs. And it's great having a wreckers just up the street because we get all kinds of stuff. We've got the front of a motorcycle. We've got this, what do you call this? A dashboard of a car with a steering wheel. We've got car parts, seats. Let's see here. We do shows like Vikings, and we've got every kind of knife and axe.
So how's your fight choreography?
The great thing, when I started out in 1975, everything was analog, and when we performed Foley, we had to get everything in sync because all the tracks were interlocked together. And when everything changed over to digital, that was like a blessing for us because now you can move everything into sync. So in the old days, if you had the perfect sound and it was 3 frames out of sync, you had to do it over again. Now you can just move it into sync. So for choreography that you mentioned, we did The Greatest Showman. And we were able to do all the dance sequences. Normally we would kind of bring dancers in and get them to do. But now, because we can stop and start and edit as we go, we can do all the dancing ourselves. We know how to make the sounds. And same with fencing or tap dancing or anything like that. Like we can break it all down now and edit it and make it work for us. This is a 200-year-old door from Eastern Europe. And it's got the skeleton key, the whole thing. It should be facing the other way, but it's just the way the door hangs. Oh, my particular, even better door. This is the...
Oh, that's got sound.
Well, that's a door and a half.
It's even pretty.
It is, isn't it? There's a stove over there. We have running water in here if somebody's washing the dishes. You see all these different types of chairs, leather chairs, wood chairs. easy chairs, metal chairs.
It wouldn't even occur to me that you need so many different types of chairs that a chair makes noise.
These curtains here, well, I'll explain that when we go back into the first room, but this is for changing the acoustics in the room. So if you're in the middle of a field and you clap your hands, the sound dissipates into the air. In here, we simulate that by using these thick curtains. These are velour curtains with felt behind them, so that you pull all the curtains closed, including the ceiling. We can open and close the ceiling, and it sounds like an exterior sound. It's dead because there's no reflection. And then on the other hand, when we want to do a gymnasium or something like that, we pull all the curtains open, we bounce microphones off the ceiling, and at all times we're using at least 2 microphones. We've got a distant mic and we've got a close-up mic. There's a saddle. That's when we're doing the somebody horseback riding, we're putting the saddle on a heavy bag and bouncing up and down in sync with the rider. And bicycles, when we do bicycles, we mostly turn them upside down and pedal in sync with the rider again. Remember I was telling you about doing a horse and buggy?
Yeah.
This is the buggy.
A step.
A broken step ladder.
Wow. So it sort of looks like organized chaos, like you know where everything is kind of thing, like when you're looking for something in particular, or you just, yeah.
Again, canes, hockey sticks, paddles. This is where we keep different kinds of paper. This is the classy paper, the diplomas, the scrolls, the New York Times from the 1920s, tin foil, plastic. This is animation fire.
Huh. It's like a cellophane.
These are different types of feather dusters. So this is our big wing there. This is a feather duster from the 40s. Huh. If we're doing a hummingbird, we'll spin like a tire, bicycle tire, and put the feather in and it'll go. Again, the thing about Foley that's so great is you make it up as you go. You know, doing a kid on a swing might be 8, 10 different tracks, you know, with the chain, with the squeak, with the wind. We've got certain kinds of fishing poles and we do all whooshes with that. We've done films from before Christ and we do films as modern as today. You have to have everything on hand. So we've got this set of armor that we would use in biking, for example. And the chainmail goes with it. And helmets. Here's another area. You know, there's motorcycle helmets, there's skidoo helmets, there's construction, fencing helmets, bicycle helmets, hockey helmets, football. This one's cool. This is from a Russian spacecraft. What do you call those guys?
Cosmonaut?
Cosmonaut helmet.
Huh.
But you can use that for a variety of things. Then this is the actual old pilot's helmet probably from the 40s, I would think. And sporting stuff. So we have to do, you know, every kind of sport you can think of. So there's golf clubs here, hockey sticks, paddling, curling, brooms, every style, baseball bats, lacrosse. We've got
Wrapping paper.
Wrapping paper. You have to unwrap presents. Got, you know, baseball gloves. We did a movie called, was it 42? What number was Jackie Robinson? 42. The movie was called 42. So we had to have old baseball equipment, the old style spikes and the different kinds of bags they used in those days. Cassette tape. Okay, this is what we do with cassette tape. So in the winter, when there's no grass, we take cassette tape and get a pile of it, put it on the ground, and it sounds like walking on grass. In the summertime, we did a film called Atanarjuat, the Fast Runner, and we did that in August. And we had to not fool them, but we had to come up with good snow sounds because it was made by Inuit. And so we used cornstarch in a pillowcase and walk around on that. And then we combine that with, we'll run the truck down to the arena and grab a couple of garbage cans of Zamboni snow, and we'll combine that. And sometimes we'll combine sand and salt, and depending on the type of snow. When we were doing Dune, we had lots of sand, but all the feet can't sound the same. So we were using chia seeds, bird seed, we were using salt, we were using rice, we used a lot of Rice Krispies, all kinds of combinations with the sand, so that every person doesn't sound the same. You gotta, make it real, but make it varied and textural. It's like Foley has a lot of textures, and that's what I concentrate on. Shopping carts. We've got a few of these shopping carts. So somebody's walking around the grocery store, putting stuff in their grocery cart.
Where's the squeaky wheel grocery cart? Because there always is one.
Yeah, that you add later. Seriously. So you do that, and then you see the speed of the wheel, and then you just take a hinge. You would want to resonate the hinge off the metal. To do a hinge in your hand has one sound, but as soon as you resonate it off the shopping cart, it takes on the character of the shopping cart. This is a weight scale. We got this for the movie Ali. So when the boxers come, they have a weight, and they're sliding these things along. And more sports stuff. This is all hockey, shoulder pads, knee pads. We've got hockey gloves, boxing gloves. We make, if we're doing a boxing film, we make a mat. Like, we simulate the sound of the mat in the studio. We put 4 tires down, a 3/4 inch piece of plywood, some carpet under, padding, and canvas on top. And it sounds like
a ring.
A ring. All different kinds of balls, basketballs, footballs, soccer ball. We did a movie called Dodgeball. So of course we got a dodgeball.
It's a very specific sound, the dodgeball sound. That's the terror of my grade 6 years right there, that sound.
Yeah, there it is.
Still cringing. She's flinching a little bit.
The fun thing about the movie Dodgeball is it's one of the funniest sounds, I think, that I've ever been part of, is there's a sequence in it where Rip Torn is throwing wrenches at the dodgeball team and saying, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. But he's throwing them, and a lot of them are missing, but a lot of them are hitting, in the head. So the layering thing comes in. So you take the dodgeball and you do the dodgeball hit, but then you get a really funny, like, hammer-on metal sound, and you combine them, and then it becomes funny.
Yeah, shouldn't we, learn by dodging balls that are thrown at us, or?
That's what this sack of wrenches is for. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
What?
That's the thing. I was saying that live action is one end of the spectrum, and animation is the other end of the spectrum, where you get to kind of go totally off the deep end, and comedy is somewhere in the middle. So when you're doing the dodgeball, you want it to sound real, but you want to add another element to make it funny. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff in comedy, and that's a lot of fun too.
So you could get hired just from your sense of humor with a sound effect.
Yeah, I guess you could.
Yeah.
I'm not that funny, so I don't get jobs that way. Oh, and here's another thing. So this is where you can do the difference between Foley and sound editing.
Okay.
So if you're in a bowling alley and somebody bowls a strike, that would be a sound effect. Somebody would have recorded that. But I remember doing a film where somebody hit the pin and the pin starts bouncing back and forth like that and eventually falls and knocks another pin down. That's a Foley thing because you can't do that kind of live. And it's pretty straightforward for us to do. So bowling pins, bowling balls, pumps, air, dartboards.
So, do your Foley sounds, do they get lifted as sound effects?
That's a really good question, actually, because, yeah, a lot of people, I'm dating myself again, but when we do the Care Bear movie, then the show came out, and they would take all our stuff from the film and use it in the TV shows. And we kind of thought, well, that kind of doesn't seem right.
And you can't get credit for that, because how do you prove it?
You don't want credit for that, but you'd like, maybe a little bit of either a thank you or
royalty.
Cash. Yeah. Hats, every kind of hat you can think of. Every time somebody puts on a hat, like that movie, The Greatest Showman. He's wearing a hat, and there's a lot of hat in that movie.
Congratulations, Uxbridge. You've made it through a pandemic and now a tornado. No matter what obstacle is in our path, one thing is for sure. Nothing compares to the energy that comes from being with others as they encourage you to reach your goals. At Okami Kai Martial Arts and Fitness, we know that it is easy to feel overwhelmed, but our students stay focused even when life seems uncertain. We know that we are stronger together. Come find out how strong you can be. Check out Okami Kai Martial Arts and Fitness.
So tell us a little bit about the history of Foley.
Okay, so back when the talkies first started in the late 20s, there was a man named Jack Foley, and he came up with the idea of filling in sounds after the fact. Even in those days, the sound was even more directional than it is today, so that, they would hide microphones in plants, and there's usually a boom operator who would hold a microphone somewhere, but you wouldn't capture all the sound. So he had the idea of adding sound by watching picture. But in those days, it was optical sound, which meant that when you started the optical, you had to run all the way to the end of the reel. So the reels might be broken down into 10 minutes each reel. So a feature film would be 9 or 10 reels. So what they would do is they would get more than one person and they would choreograph it so that, again, you had to watch the film, but they would have 6 or 7 people. One guy would be doing teacups over here, another guy would be doing a thunder sheet over there, and they would do it live, kind of. So if you're doing a 10-minute reel and somebody screws up at 8 minutes, you have to go right back to the beginning and start over again. So that's kind of how it got started. It was just sort of a necessity, and this Jack Donovan Foley from Ireland kind of came up with the process. And of course, every Foley studio and Foley artist, it's all named after him.
How did you get into it?
I wanted to be a picture editor, and I got a job as an assistant sound editor. And this was back in 1975. And I got a job as an assistant with these 2 gentlemen who had just come over from Britain to sort of kickstart the sound for Canadian feature films. So I was their assistant, and I was running back and forth. One of them liked to do the dialogue, and one of them liked to do sound effects. And neither one of them liked to do the Foley, and they were always kind of cursing. And I would go in, and in those days, because there's so many tracks, you have to keep track of where everything is. So you would do a paper cue sheet that said, okay, this sound starts at 26 feet and goes out at 34 feet, so that the mixer could see all the different sounds on the different tracks. So it was just a notation for where the sound was in relation to the picture. So I was doing the cue sheets, and I was, young and spry, and I'd say, I could do that. And I sort of found that I had a knack for it, and they just said, you do it from now on. So it's kind of.
And then it was just learning on the job at that point?
Learning on the job at that point, yeah.
Did you have a specific mentor, or you just did it
No
yourself?
mentor. No mentor. No, there was nobody doing it in Toronto. It was hard at first to get work because nobody knew what Foley was.
Right.
It wasn't even called Foley in those days. My credit used to be post-sync sound effects. But it was fun that way because you sort of learn as you go. I mean, I was eager and found that it was really creative. And the funny thing is, wanting to be a picture editor at the first, you realize that on every big film, there's one picture editor, and on a film like Dune, there's like 25 sound editors, plus Foley, plus dialogue, plus ADR, which is the automated dialogue replacement, where the actors and actresses come back in again and redo their lines because there was some kind of a noise or a performance that could be improved, that sort of thing.
So there's really no way that it could be done wrong because nobody was doing it?
Kinda, yeah. As long as it sounded good. It's still like that today in a funny kind of a way. We do a lot of IMAX underwater film. And what does a rolling kelp or what does an underwater volcano sound like? Or, all the different kinds of things that happen. And you make it up as you go. If it sounds good, then on to the next kind of a thing. I had to do the sound of a whale being born underwater. It's like, what does that sound like? Nobody knows, so you make it up.
Out of all the sound effects you get, where you go, okay, this was totally my invention, is there anything that you can isolate that you'd say, yeah, that was all mine, that you're really proud of?
We come up with new things every day. We know we did it. We'll pat each other on the back sometimes. Wow, that was a great sound. There's so many, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Every day that you work in the studio, you're coming up with new sounds, inventing new sounds. Here comes Sandra. Maybe you want to ask her a couple of questions. Yeah? You want to answer a couple of Foley questions quickly?
Sure. So how did you get into it? Because you're significantly younger than Andy is.
Yeah.
Is there like a formal, we were just saying to Andy that, he learned on the job. Is there a formal educational training program that you went through?
No.
No.
Yes. I mean, Andy's fine training. That's what I went through. I met Andy, just happen chance, met Andy, and Andy said, why don't you come by the studio? I was into music and stuff, and I wanted to do music recording. And then I met Andy, and I came by here, and I said, Andy, I want to work here. And he said, okay.
Well, you have to. I don't say that to everybody. Sandra was special, and Sandra showed that she had aptitude for it.
Yeah, back in the, I can say back in the day now because it's a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
So back in the day, like the way it worked, like there's not really much government funded internships and things like that. This kind of work. So I saved up my money and I came here for 6 months, like on my own time. And I just hung out every day and absorbed as much as I could and tried to find a place where I could be useful so that I could continue training. That's kind of really the way to do it back then. I don't know, like now it's kind of a bit different because students coming out of school aren't generally very interested in doing Foley. It seems to be, I don't know, or maybe there hasn't really been much interest altogether.
I think in general, students are more interested in being directors and producers and not that interested in sound. But of all the aspects of sound, the most fun is Foley. Because we're on our feet all day and we're making stuff up and being creative and throwing people around and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was a bit older too, I think, and that I think is part of it because I'd already kind of gone through some of the avenues to try to see where I could like poke in as an intern here or there, and I had a more realistic understanding of how hard it is to make it in anywhere. So like getting this opportunity to come here, it's like super appreciative. Like, it was a rare opportunity to kind of have somebody willing to take me on.
Well, before COVID, we would have a lot of students come by and a lot of student classes come by. And, people were more interested. We haven't let anybody come by, really, for the last
just starting back up
years. Yeah, right.
What makes Andy a good boss?
He's fair. He always remembers. So that's my first experience with Andy remembering. I told him I had enough money for 6 months, and on the day, like it's like he knew it was the day. I barely even remembered what day it was, and he remembered. And that was Andy's got great memory. He's always aware of the deals he's made, and he's very good at keeping his word.
But see, Sandra's a very good Foley artist, so that was really easy. Goro and Sandra are like, they're as good as it gets anywhere in the world, for sure. And the films that we work on, I mean, you can see around here, you know, Blade Runner, Ford versus Ferrari, Mary Poppins, Alice in Wonderland, Bridesmaids. Like, Sandra can do the whole film herself.
And on any given film, would there only be one Foley studio involved, or would you have another studio somewhere in the world that's also contributing?
Not usually.
Not usually. There's been the odd, but I'm thinking of something a few years ago where we shared the load with another studio, but it was more of an administrative thing, like sending
because
work out.
a certain amount of work, when you get a job out in New York, they're very strict about how much is done in New York and how much is done outside of New York. So sometimes we were doing a Coen Brothers film, and they said, okay, you guys do all the feet in the movie, and there'll be a Foley studio in New York doing the props.
Because you have a crew or two different crews, you can do multiple films and shows at the same time now.
That's what we do, yeah.
Right.
Sometimes we're working on, we keep a list of every show we work on per day in each studio. And someday there'll be 4 different projects, an hour on this one, an hour and a half on that, 2.5 hours on that, and an hour on that project, because there's deadlines and we have to stay ahead of the deadlines. And we've never missed a deadline.
Never missed a deadline.
You can't miss a deadline because mixing time is more expensive than Foley time. So you have to deliver the goods on time for sure.
So nobody heard about it, and you're trying to get work. How do you get the word out that you could do this?
You mean way back when?
Yeah, when you
now?
first started. No, when you first started.
When I first started, I don't know. I took a job as a bartender for a while because it was so slow. It just sort of, there's sort of like you kind of reach these certain points. One of the films that helped move me along was Heavy Metal way back when. And then another one was Quest for Fire. And you work on these movies and then it starts to kind of...
just like word of mouth.
Yeah, word of mouth.
Oh, you should hear this guy on the phone though. He's a good...
I'm a good brown noser.
Really good brown noser.
Oh, I have brown nose.
He's the best. Whenever we need some brown nosing, we're like, take the phone.
And then I got a job at the National Film Board. I got a freelance job there, and then they liked what we were doing. So I did 100 films at the National Film Board. That was sort of a big stepping stone. Then we got a Norman Jewison film. That was a big stepping stone. And then, we did all Norman's films after that kind of thing. Same with David Cronenberg and Anatomy going and people like that. Once time, moves on and soundtracks are getting better and people are realizing that they need Foley. And then there was the commercials, like TV commercials. I used to work at this place on Adelaide Street. It was called Deluxe. Right across the road it's called Sounds Interchange. And what's it called now? Technicolor.
Which is also changed. Yeah.
But so I used to go and do commercials on my lunch hour and charge the same rate for an hour that I did for a whole day.
Commercials are all right.
Commercials were great. So I did maybe 100 commercials too. And then we've done some video games and we've done some VR sound work. And we did the live Foley show and it just keeps kind of...
How'd you end up in Uxbridge?
I wanted to get into Toronto and I took a map and I got a compass and I drew a circumference around the area. And actually Stouffville was as far as I was going to go, but didn't find anything in Stouffville. And found this place, a hobby farm. And what I wanted was space, because for quiet. And back in 2000, when I started here, it was much quieter than it is today. And we've built these 2 really soundproof rooms since then. So we don't very often have issues.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to work in the city. Like now that they're building a condo building, like there's always a condo building under construction somewhere. Like I worked in the city and you're like between jackhammers, like trying to get the sound. It's so frustrating.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sandra L.A. Fox.
Thank you, Andy, for all these wonderful years working with us.
I got it recorded. I got it
You're
recorded.
pretty good brown noser yourself there, Sandra.
So looking at the posters of the movies you've done, some of these are, well, all of these are really noteworthy. So if you were going to look at, let's say, Creed 2, what's something that you can remember from Creed 2 where you go, that's us, we handled that? And is there any particular scene from there where you'd go?
Just fight scenes. You know, Goro's a martial artist.
Okay.
And he teaches too. His two favorite actors were Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he always wanted to, anything that Sylvester Stallone was part of, that was his big one. Mine was Alice in Wonderland because I collect Alice and, you know, different illustrated books. And I publish books about Alice. So that was my big one.
How did the pandemic affect your business?
Well, when we first heard about the pandemic, we took 2 weeks off, like everybody else did. And then we were starting to get phone calls because the sound editors can work from home. They, you know, you can get your sound effects online and you've got your mixing board and your, you know, your speakers and everything and your monitor to look at everything. And you can do that from home. So they're phoning us and saying, we need some Foley. So we phoned the Ontario government and they said, oh no, you're an essential service because you provide for broadcasters. So after 2 weeks, we started up again and we've never been busier because there's so many series being done now, so many movies being done. Most of our clientele is in the US because a lot of that, not that we're overly expensive, but a lot of the Canadian features don't have much of a budget for Foley. We just finished Sarah Polly's new movie, which is called Something Women, which is a really good film. And we did Clement Virgo's film. So we're starting to, you know, there's some features now, Canadian features that are getting bigger budgets. We did all David Cronenberg's films. We did all as I mentioned, Norman Jewison and Adam Egoyan. So there was a time when there was a lot of big, kind of fairly okay budgeted Canadian feature films.
Do you ever turn anything down?
We've had to turn a lot of stuff down now. Not so much because of budget, but because of scheduling. We're just slammed. We're already booked into 2023.
Good for you.
But there isn't anything based on principle that stops you. You just say, we're not doing that.
It's funny. We were doing this film years ago called Wrong Turn. And it's about these hillbillies who kill teenagers and eat them, basically. And I got, oh, yeah, that's how disgusting. And there's been Wrong Turn 2, 3, 4, which we only did Wrong Turn 1. But I went in to talk to one of the mixers and said, I don't know, you know, like, we should be a little more principled. I don't think we should work on a movie like this. And he kind of looks at me like I'm crazy. And he says, well, if you don't like it, like, think of it as a comedy. Whatever that meant. It's like, okay, you know, so we did it. And then we're doing...
Look at it from a different perspective to get through it. That's interesting.
Chopping up body. We're using like roasting chickens and grapefruits and all gushy and wet chamois and all this gushy kind of disgusting sound.
To sound like dead bodies being mutilated and...
Exactly. Well, that's what you have to do. So I thought of it as a comedy, and it wasn't so bad.
Wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Did it win an Academy Award?
It was nominated for 8 Academy Awards.
Was it?
No, it was.
Bizarre question, is there Foley for pornography?
Oh, yeah. Sandra did light porn called Below Her Mouth, it was called. And
what sounds like this?
Yeah. But that was kind of risque, more than normal, but they wouldn't have budget to to do a proper Foley track. But I can envision how I could make
The proper Foley track. We'll have to go for the mediocre one. This almost sounds like it. You can't afford what it really sounds like.
Have you ever had a big Foley disaster?
A disaster movie?
No. Just something gone wrong so badly during recording that. No? Lucky you.
I know. 47 years I've been doing it. No, nothing ever gone. Nobody, touch wood, nobody's got hurt or...
That's great. We asked Pat Higgins the same thing at Canadian Tire. He talked about cars falling off the hoist into the windows and things like that. So
every day's a different day.
We had to do, there was a movie called Dinner for Schmucks. And in the movie, the girlfriend, I think Paul Rudd was the boyfriend in the car. And he was driving a Porsche. And she was so mad at him, she took like a hammer or a sledgehammer or whatever it was and smashed all the mirrors, all the lights, all the windows, just like toasted this Porsche. And we brought a car into the studio and we had our safety goggles on. We literally smashed the car the same way it was being smashed in the movie. And in the end, she takes a bar and shoves it through the roof. And we had to do all that live.
that would have been fun.
It was total fun.
Well, that's it. What's your best day at work? The day we smashed a car, or the day we watched porn all day and tried to come up with sound effects?
Or the day we mutilated bodies, threw cabbages down the stairs.
The funny thing about that car, actually, Shelley Macbeth, it was her mother's car. Like, people give you stuff. Like, someone will come by and go, oh, I'm moving down. I got this rifle. You want it? Sure. And Shelley came by and said that her mother loved the movies and that she passed away and she wanted to donate the car to the Foley studio so it would kind of live on. And it did for years. We used it. And the deal was I tell Shelley every time we used the car in a particular movie, but it was sort of falling apart. So it was the perfect one for Dinner for Schmuck. And then you phone the wreckers up the street here and they come by and take it away and pay you $125. It's like, I love that.
If there's one person who's alive that you could talk to, who would it be?
If he was alive?
Yeah. No, who is alive?
Oh, somebody who is alive?
Yeah, somebody who is alive. Who would you like to talk to?
You?
Aw, that's very kind.
I don't know.
She didn't say you.
I know.
Yeah.
I got excited. I called him a sheep. I got it.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry. And if there's one person who's passed away now, who would you like to speak with? Lewis
Carroll. Charles Dodson. Well, it's because I collect Alice.
What got you into that?
Years ago, I was in London and I picked up a book. I've always been into books, and I picked up a book called The Illustrators of Alice, and I just sort of took from there because, Max Ernst, Salvador Dali, Arthur Rackham, of course, the original John Tenniel, all these people had illustrated Alice, so I just thought I'd start collecting, and then it grew into something much bigger.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy.
Well, that was the hardest episode to ever edit.
What was the biggest challenge for you?
The fact that he's trying to do everything. We're on a tour and it's, let's look at this, let's look at that. And this will make that sound. And it was disappointing for me because there was one point where he took a hot water bottle and he said, okay, all I'm going to do is I'm going to do this and then this, and this is how you get screeching tires. And at the time when we're doing it, he's going, okay, I'm going to fill this up with air. I'm going to put water on the cement and then I'm going to run the hot water bottle across the cement. And I thought, this is so cool. Like, just out of all of the sound effects, there was at least the glove with the paper clips where we got the dog feet. That was, okay, well, now we're talking about that. But it was like, oh, this is such a cool sound. And then I got home and I listened and went, you can't see it. So it just different, just totally different.
He has done a lot of tours inside the studios and everything for high school groups and different tours for community groups and stuff. And it's such a neat opportunity to go in and see everything though, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you were saying to me years ago, before we even looked at doing this podcast, you said, you got to meet Andy and you've got to go and check out the studio. It was such a cool thing, but such a different world.
Yeah, totally such a different world. And he's so unassuming and humble. So, Andy, we really appreciate the time that you spent with us. And what was extra cool is that we're in this place just on this hidden away 25-acre hobby farm that you probably, or any of us Uxbridgians, drive by every single day and have no idea that they're making Academy Award winning Hollywood films in there.
And what a cool thing to have in the community. But at the same time, when I was going through one of my audio classes at Seneca and the professor's talking about Foley, and I'm going, well, there's a studio just outside of town here. He's like, really? Like, even people in the city that are in the business, they don't know he exists.
And not just any studio, it's the studio. He's the guy.
Yeah. But, just nonchalant, what was that movie called? Oh, that's right.
The Greatest Showman.
The Greatest Showman.
No
Oh,
biggie,
yeah.
Whatever. And Ford versus Ferrari and Alice in Wonderland, all of these massive names.
Yeah. The Greatest Showman, though. There's a lot of hat in that. I thought that was really good. There's a lot of hat in there. So I'm watching it, think, wow, dancing and music. And look, I'll be honest. I was waiting for Hugh Jackman to bring out the Wolverine claws at least once. But still, there's a lot of hat in that.
But you know what? With that in mind, let's go back and watch it again and listen for the hat. And I'm being totally serious, because we listen to dialogue, we listen to music. If, with the dancing stuff, I'm sure there's like tapping you're listening to, but I would never even consider listening for the hat. I'm going to go back and do that. You going to join me?
But totally different world, though. Again, like you were talking about sitting in chairs. I never would have thought that every different chair would sound different.
And you and I, the older we get, we sound different getting out of every single chair, don't we?
Crack, 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 crack. Yeah, it doesn't matter what chair. Crack, 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 crack.
So thank you to Andy and your crew for spending the time with us. We did interrupt a couple of crews who were in the midst of doing some recording. So thank you for tolerating us just tromping through and having to put your work on pause just for those couple of minutes. We really appreciate that. And if you haven't met Andy and you ever get a chance to, don't pass it up. Go and pick his brain and go and let him give you the tour.
Yeah, and show him how to do screeching tires, because that was...
Or have him show you how to do
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't go to Andy's and screech your tires. This is what they really sound like. No, probably not a good idea. Thanks very much for listening. This has been a Capsule Broadcasting production. This is what we sound like.